Todd Young Online presents Young Tales. Tales for the young and the young at heart. Today's story:
Bulfinch's Mythology, King Arthur and His Knights, Episode 4, The Sword and the King. In the days when Britain was torn between warlords and wandering kings, there came one destined to unite them all. A boy of unknown birth who would rise to become the greatest monarch the Isle had ever known. This is the tale of Arthur Pendragon, son of Uther, heir of prophecy, and chosen of the sword. After many years of blood and battle, Uther Pendragon, king of Britain, fell ill and died. The kingdom was left leaderless. Barons and princes quarreled over the crown, each claiming right by blood or conquest. No man knew of Uther's son, for Merlin had hidden him at birth. Raised in secret by Sir Ector, far from the court, the boy knew nothing of his royal blood. He was page and squire to Sir Ector's son, Sir Kay, all known to all as Arthur of no name. Yet heaven had not forgotten the promise made to Britain. On a Christmas morning, as the nobles gathered in prayer, a great stone appeared in the cathedral door. No, a great stone appeared before the cathedral door. What the heck? And in the stone a sword of marvelous beauty, its hilt carved with strange runes. Upon it were written the words, "Whoso pulleth out this sword of this..." Let me try that again. "Whoso pulleth out this sword of this stone and anvil is rightwise king born of all England." Each lord and knight came forth in turn, tugging and straining. None could move it. The sword stood fast through Christmas, Candlemas, Easter, and Pentecost. When the time came for the great tournament, Sir Kay broke his blade in combat and sent his young squire to fetch another. "Arthur!" Kay rode. He said. That's better. "Ride home quickly and bring me a sword, or I shall be shamed before the court." "At once, my brother," Arthur said. The boy found the house empty, but as he rode past the church, he saw the strange sword shining in the stone. Thinking no harm, he alighted, took it by the hilt, and drew it forth as easily as a reed from the river. Thundercats, ho! Anyway, "And by my faith," Arthur said quietly, "it came freely to my hand." When Sir Kay saw the blade, he marveled. "Where found you this sword?" he asked. "In the churchyard," said Arthur, "stuck in a stone." Kay's eyes burned. "And the sword is mine," he said, for he saw the chance for power. But when they returned and set the sword in But when they returned and set the sword again in the stone, much better, Sir Kay could not move it, nor could any save Arthur. Then Bishop Bryce cried out, "Behold, the will of heaven! Arthur alone is chosen. He shall be our king." Oh my. And so at 15 years of age, the orphan boy was crowned king of Britain. "I am your king, anointed with holy oil and sworn to rule in justice and mercy." Yet not all bowed to him. 11 kings and one mighty duke rose against him, crying out that he was unworthy, a child, a pretender, a bastard. They marched from every corner of Britain, gathering their hosts in the forest of Rockingham. But Arthur had more than men. He had Merlin. "My king," Merlin said, "send word across the sea to your allies, King Ban of Benwick and King Bort of Gaul. They will bring you strength when all others doubt." And so they came, crossing the channel with banners bright as fire. Together the kings met the rebels in battle, and when the enemy encamped, Merlin worked his craft. In the dark of the night, he spoke words no man could understand. And suddenly all the rebels' tents fell flat as leaves before a storm. Arthur charged with Ban and Bohart at his side, their swords flashing like lightning. The forest shook with the cries of battle, and when dawn broke, the rebel kings were routed and fled. Peace did not last. The Saxons rose again, dark ships filling the eastern shores. Arthur called his knights to arms, and once more victory hung on his courage. At Mount Badon, Baden probably, let's go with that. The young king stood before his men, his armor shining like the dawn. Upon his head he wore a golden helm engraved with the image of a dragon. Over his shoulders hung his shield, Freewind. They named his shield, painted with the Holy Virgin. In his hand he bore Excalibur, forged in Avalon, a sword of peerless strength. He called upon her name, Mother Mary of God, and charged. Through the press of battle he struck down hundreds, his knights fighting beside him until the Saxons broke and fled. And from that day no enemy dared set foot upon his shores for many years. Years later, Merlin counseled Arthur that his reign would not be complete until he took a queen worthy of his crown. Seek the daughter of King Laodegan, said Merlin, for in her beauty and her courage your fate is written. Her name was Guinevere. When Arthur came to her father's court, he found it besieged by the pagan king Rience of Ireland. We're going with Rience. Without revealing his name, Arthur rode to battle beside the king and turned the tide with sword and spell. Guinevere watched from the walls as Arthur struck down a giant warrior in single combat. She whispered, "If I could choose my husband from all the men in the world, it would be this noble knight." Giggity. When peace was won, Arthur revealed himself, and Laodegan, seeing heaven's will, gave his daughter's hand to the king of all Britain. Their wedding was held with 7 days of feast and song, and the people rejoiced. Then Arthur gathered his knights, brave men from every land, and seated them at the round table, crafted by Merlin's art. There they swore the oaths of knighthood, to show mercy to the weak, to protect all women, to flee treason and falsehood, to fight for the right, not for the reward, to never take battle in a wrongful quarrel, and above all, to live and die in honor. And so the Fellowship of the Round Table was born, a brotherhood bound by loyalty and virtue, stronger than any army. One day as Arthur rode with Merlin through the hills, he was challenged by a knight who kept a narrow pass. None shall pass. They fought fiercely, but the stranger's sword broke Arthur's own blade in two. Merlin cast a spell, sending the knight into enchanted sleep, and led Arthur to a quiet lake glimmering under the sun. "I have no sword now, Merlin," said Arthur. "Then look to the water, my king." In the midst of the lake, an arm clothed in white silk rose from the depths, holding aloft a sword bright as crystal. Arthur and Merlin took a boat and rowed out. Arthur grasped the hilt, and as his hand closed upon it, the arm sank slowly beneath the waves. "It is beautiful. What name shall I give it?" Arthur said. "Its name, my king, is Excalibur." Dun, dun, dun. Yet not all of Arthur's battles were fought against men. In Brittany there dwelt a dragon. Wait, what? No. In Brittany there dwelt a giant on St. Michael's Mount who had carried off the Duchess of Hull, to devour her. When Arthur heard of this, he took only 2 knights and rode by night to the mountain. He fought the giant by a great fire. Gnawing the limb, he found the giant by a great fire. That makes sense. Gnawing the limb of a man. Around him lay 3 maidens bound in chain. Arthur drew Excalibur and cried, "Monster, this night thou diest." The giant rose, huge as a tower, and struck at Arthur with a club so heavy it shattered the king's coronal. But Arthur drove his sword into the creature's belly, and they wrestled together until they rolled down the hill, locked in fury. At last Arthur smote him through the heart, and the giant fell dead. Arthur commanded his head be set upon a spear for all to see, and built a chapel upon the mountain in thanks to God. Thus, St. Michael's Mount bears his name to this day. And so the boy from nowhere became the greatest king of men. He drew the sword from the stone, won the love of Guinevere, and gathered round him the bravest hearts of the age. But already, in the shadows of Camelot's glory, fate was moving. For every light casts a shadow, and every kingdom faces its fall. But here's where we end for today.
Young Tales is produced and narrated by Todd Young from Todd Young Online. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe and join us next time for another story. Thank you for your support.